Welcome back to the Skinema podcast. This is episode 31, where today we're talking about Christopher Nolan's newest film, The Odyssey. We literally just got back home from being in the IMAX theater, seeing The Odyssey tonight. Quickly before we get into it, I'm sure we're going to want to jump right to it and start to talk about this. But we just recorded not too long ago, Jathan, so I don't know how many new watches you have, but anything going on, movie news you want to talk about before we get into The Odyssey?
Um, let's see. Honestly, I have nothing that I truly am dying to tackle. I'm just eager to talk about this. If you have anything, go for it.
Um, no, not anything really too pressing on my mind. I'm trying to think. The only movie news I know for sure I wanted to mention real quick was Digger, the new Tom Cruise film coming out in October. That trailer finally released in, I don't know, it has mixed reviews online right now, and honestly, how I feel about the trailer, I'm mixed. I think, Alejandro Inarritu is a great director. He's done really great films. The casting is really great, but the trailer didn't sell me as much as I wanted it to. Still looking forward to it. Tom Cruise is one of the best. He's one of my favorite of all time, and it's good to see him like in a more acting chops role. I feel like when he plays Ethan Hunt and Pete Maverick, which he's been doing for like the past 10 years, and really nothing other than that, it kind of falls into the same kind of acting. So I'm excited to see him do something different. But I don't know. I don't know if you saw the trailer, but it's kind of like Doctor Strangelove, which that movie's already a fantastic movie. So I don't know. I'm gonna be there day one, and I actually think I'm gonna be able to see it when I go to LA in October as well. So I'll definitely see it out there too, because their IMAX theater's beautiful there. But I don't know. The trailer didn't sell me. As far as watching stuff, I've been primarily, since the last time we spoke, rewatching Nolan's filmography. I think the only ones I didn't get to was like Batman Begins and Following, which I saw Batman Begins in theaters this year, back in January, so I didn't feel like I needed to. And then Following, I just didn't get to again, but I will soon. Other than that, not much. Yeah, I think pretty much get into it. Yeah, there's not much else I got. So yeah, we can just jump right into the
Yeah,
Odyssey.
let's do it. Um, wow, the Odyssey just, I hate using this phrase, but blew my mind. Um, we literally just got back, so I'm still just kind of processing it in my brain a little bit. This is Nick's third watch, but wow, just when I think Christopher Nolan can, cannot reach new heights, he amazes me once again. And I have to stop referring to him as a director because at this point he just needs to be referred to as a master because there's no one doing what he does. And to be honest, it feels like a very special time and special event for moviegoers and just filmmakers. And my first impressions, it was just honestly as a message from Nolan to us student filmmakers in the times we're in right now. It feels like film is in a very scary place with streaming. Things are changing with AI, and the future of film is kind of uncertain. With this movie, the first feeling that I got was that this is here to stay and it's not going anywhere because film is so powerful, and it was honestly like a home run derby for Nolan in from my point of view, just in the sense that on every aspect of filmmaking it felt like he was doing a grand slam in every department, from costume design to acting to directing to editing. It just felt like magic. That's the best word to use.
Yeah, as Jathan said, this was my third watch. Last night at the time of this recording, I saw it twice, and I just, it's. Well, I'll get better words and describe my feelings a little bit better. I just want to preface this before we get into like spoilers. Obviously, the story is very old, but obviously what Nolan did with it. But his films, just I've said it so many times, and Jathan, because obviously you know me for a very long time. His films mean so much to me. Like there's no way I'm sitting here talking to Jathan having a film podcast without Christopher Nolan. There's just no way. Literally no way. Um, I grew up with the Dark Knights; those were really like big staples in my life, and then I kind of got into Inception, and I remember when Dunkirk was coming out, we were in middle school. Didn't go to see it in theaters, but I remember watching it at home. I would say from when Tenet was getting announced and teased is when I took Nolan serious. So like 2019, 2020. And ever since then, he's been my favorite director of all time. So for Tenet, I saw opening weekend. Oppenheimer, which came out 3 years ago, I saw that I think a total of 10 times in theaters. And now with the Odyssey, we're only 2 days into it being released, and I've already seen it 3 times. So it's very clear that this guy means a lot to me. His films mean a lot. And I know there's already a lot of discussions online. Like, I feel like Chris Nolan has reached the point in his career now where it's like, it's not cool to like him anymore and it's cooler to hate on him. And I feel like a lot of people do that, or they call you like a film bro if you like him. The guy makes amazing films. You can say what you want like about the stories and what he does with certain characters. It doesn't matter. He knows how to make great films, and I think if you appreciate the art of filmmaking, which obviously Jathan does, he's a film major. He knows the importance of it and what goes into it. But even people like me who just love to absorb film, you know that Christopher Nolan's special, and you know that this film, The Odyssey, is probably his most special. Just shooting the entire thing on an IMAX camera, creating a new IMAX camera for this, and we were kind of talking on the ride home, but we were trying to obviously refrain from it. But like, actors want to work with him. You have Oscar-winning actors, or leading actors, or maybe second build actors playing very small roles in this. They just everybody wants a taste of what it's like to be in a Christopher Nolan film, and that's very prevalent in this film. And I was also saying to Jathan too. I've seen it 3 times now, as I keep saying. Each rewatch has gotten better. Like, astronomically better. My first watch of it, I definitely liked it. I had a few problems with it, which we'll get into, but I was like leaning 4.5, and I was like, "This is very good," but there was a couple things here and there. Then the second watch of it, I was like, "No," it blew me away. And then tonight, watching it with you in the true IMAX theater, I was just like, "Fuck!" I'm like, "This guy did it again. He just did it again." Like, there's
He
no other
did.
way to put it. It's just special stuff, man. It's unbelievable. Like you were saying, it's I don't take it for granted. Um, just being a fan of film and being alive in this time period with all this great technology, and like Jathan was saying, it's scary with the AI stuff and like streaming and all that. There's pros and cons to this great technology that we're living through, but Christopher Nolan is one of the pros because he stretches the boundaries of filmmaking. He's still somebody that cares about the art form, and there's a lot of directors, there's a lot of filmmakers out there that still care about it. And when their films come to theater, is that's when you're gonna see me and Jathan most excited about that. And Nolan did it. I don't think I'll get emotional in this podcast. I was pretty emotional last night, but it's just film is my life. This is what I'm passionate about. If I'm not working or doing something family related, friends related, whatever, my mind is on movies. And it will be like that to the day I die. And I love it. I live for these type of experiences. So yeah, it's been a crazy last like 36 hours, but I'm loving it.
So Matt Damon, I think he killed it, and I think it's pretty easy to like give him that A+, but he goes through so much in this film, and without getting too much into detail right away, you just see him go through so many emotions. Um, he makes so many tough decisions, and he's constantly battling with his faith and his convictions and what he knows is right and wrong, and where he needs to lead his men through this treacherous journey. And it was just a really powerful journey to see him go through, as well as Tom Holland's character Telemachus. he faced a lot of adversity just sitting there in turmoil with all these men who are disrespectful to him and his family, his entire kingdom, what they stand for. And it was just a great deal of patience that he had to deal with. Um, he often gets casted as these, boy characters or, younger men. And I think he is very synonymous with those archetypes, especially in like a coming of age where you have to see him deal with himself at odds with against the world and just with himself. But I wouldn't say that this is a role that he's played before. I don't think you can watch this movie and say, okay, that's Peter Parker. No, that's Telemachus. And I'm glad he's
Mm-hmm.
getting opportunity because his career, I don't know about you, Nick, but from my personal opinion, I think his agent kind of, screws him a little bit in the roles that he gets him to play. So I'm glad that he finally got to work with someone like Christopher Nolan who recognizes these talents and puts them to use. Um, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I wanted to quickly touch on Tom Holland too
Sure.
because I know we've already discussed this with like watching the interviews pre-movie, whatever, but Tom Holland has really said that this movie kind of changed his outlook on filmmaking because he has been pretty notorious saying that, not that he would ever retire, but he definitely said like once Spider-Man starts to slow down, you'll probably see a little bit less of him. And he was certainly doing that post No Way Home. He wasn't doing as many projects. He has like his non-alcoholic beer company, like he's doing other business stuff. But I think Nolan put a lot of confidence back in Tom Holland because I think outside the Spider-Man films, a lot of his films haven't done that well. Whether it's just like their ratings or box office wise. I know like when we saw Uncharted, I had a good time with that film, but I don't think that's a film that we ever talked about after that night. That didn't do that well. Obviously, that was like another big film for Tom Holland that was supposed to do well. It just didn't do well. But I really, and I'm not just saying this, and this is a thing that I try to, at my age, 22 now, I try not to look up to like celebrities or people like that. But him and Zendaya have always been two celebrities that I really, really admire, not just because of their work, but who they are. So I'm not saying this like I know the guy. I don't know Tom Holland. I'll probably never know Tom Holland, but I'm just really proud that he got this role now, and he's really said how you were saying, Jathan, like he's done a lot of like the boyish characters. He feels like this is kind of the last role he'll do of this in his career because I think he like just turned 30. So I'm very proud of him. I think he did really good in this film. I definitely agree with what you're saying. This is not like we're not seeing Tom Holland play kind of a Peter Parker archetype. He's playing Telemachus. He's playing a whole new character. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
There's just a lot of standout roles in this film because
Yeah,
it's a long movie. It's nearly 3 hours, and there's a lot to work with. There's a huge ensemble cast that we could go over. For example, Anne Hathaway, she played Penelope. She was pretty good in it. Um,
she's my top performance in the film.
yeah, they really give her a lot to work with when she's just sitting there next to Tom Holland as well as Robert Pattinson, who I think was terrific in this role too. And he
Hmm.
he just impresses me every time, even when I don't feel like I don't think the script served him the best in this. He definitely has a lot to work with, but he just has so much versatility as an actor. It's unbelievable. I see him as a great hero character in stories like Batman and Mickey 17, but also he can be a fucking son of a bitch too. Like he is
Yeah,
despicable in this movie. So I just wanted to tip my hat to that. Um, I'm trying to pull up the name here, but the actor who plays the blind man, I think
yeah. John Liscuzamo.
he was
I always
great.
pronounce his last name wrong. He's such a great actor. He's been a great actor forever. I just feel like in terms of like big movie roles, he just hasn't had them, and I'm happy that people are seeing his abilities in the Odyssey, because everybody and their mother's about to see this film. He's been a phenomenal actor for decades now, and I'm so happy that Chris Nolan picked him to play his character.
Hmm. Elliot Page has a pretty small role, but important one in this. He plays
Mm-hmm.
Sinon.
Sinon.
Hmm. Sinon. And I don't want to go too deep right now, so I'll probably just end it here. But he had a pretty big emotional role considering what he does in Odysseus' story, and that kind of
Yeah.
effects on him. But
I want to go back to the L.A. Page thing and loop it into the Lupita Nyong'o thing. I don't know how much you've seen on like film Twitter, but um, people have been really discussing towards both of them, because there was a rumor for a while that Elliot Page was going to play Achilles, which people were all up in arms about, because Achilles is like this very, big, tough, muscular soldier, and they're obviously Elliot Page, transitioning. They're like, that's ridiculous. Why would he play Achilles? Obviously, he doesn't play Achilles. He plays a total different character, but that whole discourse was just ridiculous. And then Lupita Nyong'o plays two characters, but obviously the main character she's playing is Helen of Troy, which is she's not a goddess, but she's described as this like beautiful goddess. And Lupita Nyong'o is a beautiful woman, but people have been discussing towards her online for playing this character, which is just so ridiculous. But I wanted to shout out them because they're very small roles in this film, but they're phenomenal. They have very limited screen time, but they leave an impact. We've gone through the big ones. Zendaya as Athena she's really great. Zendaya is always great. But it's a very, I don't want to say diluted performance, but it's a very just soft performance. She's not meant to like do too much physically. She's kind of a guiding force for Odysseus, but she does a great job of that. Um, John Bernthal, great. He's just the chaotic, crazy guy that you always expect from him. He's awesome. Benny Safdie as however you pronounce his name, Megamendon. He's awesome. He doesn't say much, but he just has that aura, which I hate saying that word, but it's true. He's just so badass. Um, two of my underrated ones though are Hishmas Patel, who plays like Odysseus, his true right hand man. He's in Tenet, so when you eventually watch Tenet, you'll see him pop up in that. He's a great actor, but I think he really did a good job. He has some really good scenes with Matt Damon and goes kind of toe to toe with him a couple times. And then my underrated, not from he doesn't say anything. He mumbles a few words, but Bill Irwin as the Cyclops is phenomenal,
terrifying.
because we'll go into that when we go to that scene, but that was entirely practical. And we'll go through like the filmmaking techniques of that, because I've done a lot of research on it. But Bill Irwin as the Cyclops is fucking phenomenal. Like it's so good, and he is actually the voice of Tars in Interstellar, and he actually did the puppeteering of Tars too. So he's a Nolan staple. But yeah, I think then I'll stop. Yeah, and then we'll get into it. I think Nolan always does a great job casting his movies. I thought Oppenheimer was like top echelon casting, and I think this slightly, I give the nod to it a little bit more. I just think he knocked it out. And like I said, getting people like Lupita Nyong'o and Charlize Theron, both Oscar-winning actresses, to play small roles it shows just how great Nolan is.
Nolan once again opens this film with a nonlinear narrative, and it was interesting because Homer's Odyssey obviously details Odysseus's journey, but this film kind of opens up with Telemachus as the protagonist, and we're placed into his shoes, and we kind of have to understand why, not why, but where Odysseus is after all this time, and we kind of piece together who he is from the stories that he's told by his allies and the people neighboring islands of Ithaca. And I thought that was creative. And we open up with the Trojan horse being pulled on the beach, which we fired that up right after the Dune trailer. I thought we were watching a trailer for the Odyssey, but no, we're just instantly thrown into the action, and it was amazing to see. Um, we open up with um, the Cyclops, if I'm right.
Yeah, that's the first after the Battle of Troy. That's like the first
Hmm.
place that Odysseus and his men journey to. Yeah.
We're introduced to all these characters before we get there, and there's just so much to unpack. But we get to the
Yeah.
Cyclops and his
Oh my
island,
god.
and I was shocked that we got thrown into that story immediately because when I think of Homer's Odyssey, that's like one of the first things I think of, and it was terrifying. Like they get into this cave, and this is a reoccurring theme throughout the film, but we see Odysseus lead his men in to this dangerous place, and constantly his men are put at risk. He's questioned if he's leading them into death or not, and they stumble upon the Cyclops, and God, like we were in the IMAX theater, it just booms when he is in there,
Crazy.
and it was absolutely terrifying when they stab him in the eye, and he just lets out that roar, like
Oh my god. Dude, I said it to you in the car, my dick gets hard when that happens. I don't even care. Dude, I when I first heard that, I was like, this is incredible. I'm like, this is just so good. Like you really feel like you're in that cave. Like it's just it because I remember when the shooting of this film was happening, which was last summer, and I remember when Nolan came out and said that like they're planning on doing everything practically, like all the boating scenes, the fighting scenes, and obviously me and Jathan were discussing this before. Like we're both familiar with the Homer story. I've never read like the full novel, but I've read like kid versions as a kid, and then I've seen like many different movies and stuff. But I remember thinking like, how are they gonna do the Cyclops scene? I'm like, no one's not gonna do. He's not gonna have a CGI 20-foot Cyclops. So when you see the film, you can definitely tell like when they use the forced perspective with the way they shoot it. There's a few scenes where you'll see like the back of Matt Damon's head or like the back of the soldier's head, and then you'll see Bill Irwin's Cyclops, and you can tell that like just with the camera trick, they're making it look like Bill Irwin's 20, 30 feet tall, but it's just they're capturing it in real time. But then there's a few times where they actually had like a real puppet, like a huge, massive puppet. You can tell there's a scene where I think the Cyclops first comes into the cave the first night, and he goes to sleep, and then there's a scene where the men are just walking around his feet. You can tell that that's real, and they really made that. And I'm pretty sure even when they get up to his face, I'm pretty sure they made that for real. That's not Bill Irwin sleeping on his side. That was like a real puppet. But when he is running and moving around and all that, it's just they did it so well. Like I just like it doesn't look like it's like a camera trick. It really looks like Bill Irwin's 30 feet tall. It's just incredible. And then what you were saying with when they poke him in the eye, the way the theater just erupted, like it you feel like the fucking Cyclops is sitting behind you. Like that's what it felt like. And I was just like, holy. And this is like what the first 20, 25 minutes in the film, probably 20 minutes. It's like we're in for a long fucking ride.
yeah.
It's gonna be a long journey home.
And then they finally leave the cave, and even I was wondering this, and I'm sure a lot of audience members were too. But Odysseus, right as they're about to leave, he shoots another arrow right in his eye, and even his men are like, "Why the fuck did you do that?" Because he fucking storms right out of the cave, and all of a sudden, like they all gotta start running, like get back to the fucking ship because this dude is a terror. He's a killing machine. He's shredding through men, and they're barely able to get off when he's fucking blind from the island. And it was just wild. There's so many, there's so much to gush about, and I think that's just one of the best strengths of the film is the action sequences. Like it's
Yeah.
just
I
batshit
want to touch
insane.
on one more. I want to touch on one more thing with the Cyclops because I know we're gonna run through like each of his stops, but they made a lot of changes to that scene in terms of like the novel and then other renditions of the Odyssey film, which I thought were, when I first watched the film, I was like, I don't know if I like those changes, because the way it typically goes is that they first get into the cave and then they communicate with the Cyclops right off the bat, which Nolan doesn't do here. The Cyclops, like, he mumbles to himself once he gets poked in the eye, but he doesn't talk to them. And then also they, in the novel, in like normal ways, they give the Cyclops wine, and then that's how he falls asleep. Like, he gets super drunk and he falls asleep. They didn't do that, which I thought was interesting, but it makes sense because they just had no, they had no nothing to trade with them. And then another thing is too, when they escape in Nolan's film, they put like hay just on their bodies and run out with the sheep, which, that's the only thing I really didn't love about Nolan's take on it, because the way it's done in the novel and other renditions is the men tie themselves to the sheep, so they're just underneath them, because the Cyclops is obviously very smart. He feels each sheep and he knows how many sheep he has. So like he'll count like one, two, even though he can't see. In this film, like he's not. You can tell he's just like failing and not really counting. That's just like a cinema sins thing. It's not a big deal. It's just something I noticed that I was like, I wish they didn't make that change, but I get it. It's kind of, Nolan does everything practical. You can't strap Matt Damon to a fucking sheep, so it's not gonna work. But that's just one thing I noticed. But
Hmm. They kind of use him being able to speak more as a plot device and just foreshadowing later to the gods and
yeah,
what happens when you defy them. But yeah, that
hmm
was one change that I kind of thought about, but I was just hit with so much whiplash from the movie that I didn't really have time to sit on it and honestly
it
forgot
made him
about
more
it.
scary.
Yes, he was more
It made him much, because
he was more animalistic in this movie.
yeah, hmm
So they leave, and then they go out to sea, but it's a shit show because they pissed off Poseidon, and they finally land on this one island, and they're hungry. They're looking for food, and they see a boy in the forest, and they call out to him. They think that he's gonna bring help, but all of a sudden these giant, like, I don't even know what they were, but these like almost gladiators come out, and then they're like, get back to the fucking ship, because they see one of them attack one of their guys, and dude gets sent flying like through 15 trees, like he's cut in half. Like, we gotta get the fuck out of here, and they barely get out.
yeah,
They lose two out of their three ships to these guys.
yeah, yeah. I think they're, once again, I'm probably butchering it. I'm terrible with pronouncing words, but I think it's the Laestrygonians is what the clan is called. This is also like in the novel and stuff, and they're pretty much just I don't know the right word. They're obviously smaller than the Cyclops, but they are giants, and they are descendant of Poseidon as well. Um, so you know, them fucking with them obviously makes Poseidon mad, and only hurts their journey home even more. But this scene too, I was like, holy I'm like, because you can just tell it's practical. Um, to my understanding, I didn't do too much research on this scene, but I think a lot of the men in the suits, I think Nolan did get some really tall actors, and I don't I don't think all of them are practical. They might have like CGI'd some of them, but captured some of them and just kind of expanded them more. But you see just how they get trapped in the forest, and it's kind of just all spiraling and circling on them and just recreating itself. It's just amazing. But I think what's so good about this movie, and it happened with the Cyclops and it happened with these giants, once they get on the ship and they start attacking the ships and they start attacking the men, that's all practical and it looks amazing. Like, I not to get back to the Cyclops, but when Bill Irwin like is in the water and all that, like he's really in the water, but the way they shoot it just makes it look like he's so much bigger. It's crazy. It's just it feels like old school filmmaking. It's just incredible.
Hmm. And they finally leave, and everyone on the ship confronts Odysseus, and you get a really good scene between him and his name, Yuka.
Oh yeah, Hishmesh Patel's character. Let me
Yes,
I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, but yeah,
His
I'm not the.
his
Yeah.
character is always at odds with Odysseus, and for good reason. Is honestly one of the more compelling pieces in the film, just seeing those two kind of go at each other. And these men, they hold a lot of respect for him because he is a warrior, he is a veteran, he's a king. But at the same time, they're going on this incredibly perilous journey. And it's, again, one of the themes of the movie is like holding on to that faith despite all the uh, convictions you have against Odysseus, against the world that they're in. They still have to follow this guy through thick and thin. And that kind of gets tested when they land at the witch's home, Circe, and they leave Odysseus by the ship and they all go to this witch's house. And that scene was terrifying. Like, I immediately
Hmm.
thought of the backrooms with the way that the faces are stretched out, and
Yeah.
it just kept going and going. And honestly, I wanted to peel my eyes away because it was getting like very grotesque with the faces and the hands. It was very uh, disturbing, and they get transformed into these pigs, which Circe the witch um, has been feeding humans to these soldiers. So that's its own thing. But Odysseus catches on. He's hunting this deer. He shoots him, and he finds out it's a person that was transformed into that animal. So he's immediately suspicious of the witch, and you kind of see one of his strengths as a character, and one that develops later on when he takes on the title of Sinon, is his perception and how he's able to read people and navigate these situations that are trifling for him. And
Yeah.
that was a really good scene, especially with him showing mercy to her after all that they've been through, which I'm trying to think chronologically. That takes place after the siege of Troy, right?
Yeah. All this stuff is after Troy. Yeah.
So you get this character development from him where he's still a fierce warrior, but he's also trying to learn that there's other ways of dealing with his problems rather than butchering and killing all these men and women in this village and burning these towns, which Circe the
Yep.
witch was afraid of these men because it was implied that they did the same to the people that she loved.
Hmm. Yeah. I love this scene. This was something that I honestly forgot about. I know Circe. I knew that she was like a witch and all that, but when I was watching some of the Odyssey movies, older movies before I saw this one, I they didn't have this scene in there. I don't remember seeing this, and I don't remember reading it as a kid too much because so I was kind of this was the only destination that they went to that I was surprised about because when the first group of men walk up the hill with like Hishmas Patel's character, and then by the time they reach like the tiger, I was like, oh yeah, I'm like these are all men trapped in these animal bodies. And then obviously you see them eat the food, and then she turns them into the pigs and everything. But there was a lot of praise coming out of an early screening of this film a few months ago, or like a month ago, with Samantha Morton, who plays Circe. People were saying that she was phenomenal, and she definitely was. She just doesn't have a lot of screen time, which that's the unfortunate thing with this film. There's a lot of great performances. We just don't get them that long, so you really gotta enjoy them while they last. But she was great, and I really liked how you said um, Odysseus in this at this point because pre-Troy battle, he probably would have just smoked her immediately. He would have went right into that house and just killed her. But obviously, he's a much more evolved man post Troy, and it probably saved his men because obviously if he just went in and killed her, the curse wouldn't have been lifted. But yeah, I think this scene's done really well. I think this is where a lot of people are saying that Nolan. needs to do a horror film because obviously he loves practical filmmaking, which when the men are transforming into pigs, it's all practical, and then it's obviously very scary as well. So yeah, I mean that's a whole nother conversation. Nolan doing a horror film one day, but this film isn't like it's not jump scare scary, but it's frightening. There's frightening stuff, and Nolan knocked it out the park.
I'd say absolutely needs to do a horror movie before he retires, and I'll be quick about this little point here, but that whole
Yeah, that's
sequence
fun.
was just terrific for filmmaking from him. Like the whole movie, the what is being displayed on screen is like informing subtle like storytelling elements, but this part of the movie is like where he really kicks it up a notch because you see them arrive on this desolate island and you see these animals that are in these caves, and your first impression is that this is like a dangerous place, hence the lions and panthers that are on screen. But then later when it's informed of what she's doing to these people and transforming them into animals, and we flip back to Odysseus' perspective, and you see these animals again. You see them all almost warning him to stay away from this woman, and that's why they look so threatening. Is because this whole environment is unsafe, and it's just a terrific decision from him. And there's a million other segments of this film you can pick and choose at to show little moments like that, but it's littered throughout the
Hmm.
film, and it's just another reason, another icing on the cake for why he's one of the ones.
Yeah, I'm smiling. It's just great stuff. Yeah, we might as well just keep going to all the destinations that the crew goes to because we're about halfway through. So next is where they go to the kind of I forget the name of the island or what they call it,
I
but
think
pretty
it's,
much the
yeah,
underworld.
Hades, or not,
Yeah, Hades is
um
that.
just the underworld's fine, but
Yeah, there's a particular name, but yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes
me
too
too.
because this is obviously where you get the great Elliot Page scene where he explains where you know he thought that he truly thought that the Trojan horse was a peace offering for Troy, but obviously it was a huge deception. And but Odysseus says he had to make him believe that that was the truth because I, he says the particular line. What
I
is
had to
it?
make you believe.
Something about yeah. He said something about like uh, the truth makes something men lie, something like that. He said I forget the exact quote. If I can find it, I'll say it later. But yeah, he says a great line, and then I love the scene where this is where you see a Megamegon, whatever his name is, a Megamenon, a
Meganemnon,
Megamenon.
Mega
Yeah,
Minion.
you see his you see his journey home, and obviously how he came home thinking that everything was great, and then his wife kills him. That's a great scene. And then this is the only time you hear Benny Safdie talk, but it's just he just has the aura, man. That suit is crazy,
Oh,
so crazy.
it made one of the posters. That's how tough it was.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get the great prophecy. This scene's really good, where they kind of just lay out the rest of the journey, where pretty much the gods are putting Odysseus in a situation where it's either he chooses to abide by the gods' rules, but only he survives, or he can defy the gods and maybe have a chance of his men surviving. So Odysseus, for the rest of the journey home, has to toggle between that, which is shown pretty well.
And I fell in love with that scene, and that sequence was one of probably a top three aspect of that film, just from the music alone. Like it was dark and
Hmm.
foreboding, and just to see all of the dead soldiers rise from the ground, it's something that like you can only envision until now from like a gothic painting from the Renaissance era, and it was just a lovely sequence. And talk about painting a picture, the art direction for that sequence was amazing. um the black and blues, just They work terrifically in that shot, and I can't wait for some of these stills to hit online when the film gets a digital release, because almost every shot is wallpaper worthy.
Yeah, definitely. I was just trying to look for that quote. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but it's really great. And then yeah, pretty much after the underworld, it's this is where they kind of go through these things a little bit quicker, just probably for the length of the film. But you get to the siren scene, which I was honestly hoping for a little bit more, because I love kind of the sirens. We were mentioning this a little bit earlier today, Jathan, about the Pirates of the Caribbean. You know that the original trilogy, the first three films, but in the fourth film, on Stranger Tides, that's where you get like the mermaids and the sirens, and I really like that aspect. So I was hoping just for a little bit more of that, but I get it. You gotta get the movie moving on. But I thought that scene was done really well too,
That monologue
just
Matt
from the
Damon
sound.
has was terrific too.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I was just gonna say that, and then I love the sound design of it because when Hishmas Patel's character puts in the airwax, the audio goes off him, so like it's everything is like suppressed, and you can't hear the sirens, but you hear Odysseus yell, and then eventually like it pulls you into the real audio, and then you just hear him yelling. But then yeah, the monologue he went on was great, and it's very interesting too because it's pretty much just like everything that he wished for or is hoping for is pretty much what he had in the past, but he let it go. And I just thought he says it in a much better way than that, but I thought it was really interesting. And I feel like that applies to even everybody's life. Like we often all wish for these certain things and we all want these things, but a lot of times like if we just kind of simplify it down, it's like stuff we already kind of have or have access to. But that scene was really good. I Before we move on to the other ones, I don't know if there was anything else particularly you wanted to say about the sirens.
It was a great sequence. Again, there's a million things I could rattle on about, but I think one of the things that stands out immediately is that just sets up Odysseus's character journey for the rest of the movie, and it's revealed that he doesn't want to go home. At least some part of him doesn't, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a non-linear narrative, so we're kind of jumping forward and backward in time, but we see Odysseus stranded on this island with this woman, and the whole time he has lost his memory. He's kind of in an amnesic state, and we jump back and forth between that, and then we get revealed that from the land of the dead that only Odysseus will survive this journey,
Yeah.
and the next scene that takes place is when they're back out at sea. They pass the land of the Sirens, and they land to this island that has Apollo's cattle. And Odysseus was told
They do something before
they
that.
do.
Before that is
Yep.
yeah. Before that's where they run into Calypso, no Charybdis, which is the whirlpool, and
Right.
then the the six-headed monster. What's it?
That was fucking insane.
Scylla,
Like
Scylla. Yeah,
the
that's another thing where Christopher Nolan. I know from what I did my research on the whirlpool. So that sequence, it looks like they're filming in like the real ocean. They actually filmed that in LA on the Universal backlot. They made like the whirlpool in there. It wasn't as big, obviously, but they did make that whirlpool, and then obviously they did some special effects with it. But then I heard Matt Damon talking about in an interview the other day when I think Scylla is the six-headed like sea monster. They made a rigging crew where they literally it didn't look like a sea monster, but they had like a green screen thing where it actually grabbed the men off the ship and pulled them out. So them really getting flung out is all practical. But then obviously they put the CGI around it to make it look like a monster. But that scene's really great. It's another one that's quick, but it's pretty major.
that was just ridiculous at that point. I was like, this thing is literally plucking these guys out and just like snatching it in its mouth, like almost like Bird Box, where like you can't even see the monster. I was like, this is just getting ridiculous, and
Yeah,
in a good way. But
yeah. I really like this scene too because this is another like big character progression for Odysseus, where he kind of eggs them on to go to the whirlpool, and then Hishmet Patel's character is like, we're not surviving that whirlpool. We got to go in the alley, which Odysseus wanted them to go in the alley anyway, but he couldn't reveal the truth to them because he knew that they would not have wanted to encounter another monster. But yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's just I love it, man. It's I just can't believe he shot all this in camera. It's just it doesn't make any sense. But
And he had to keep reloading it every 3 minutes, which is just
yeah.
insane to me. Just and it honestly translates on screen not for the worse, and the actors are just so tapped into their roles, and I can
Hmm.
imagine, it might cause a little trouble, but you have so much star power here that it really doesn't phase them, and you get some really captivating performances that honestly it's a style that I haven't really seen before because the camera has to reload every 3 minutes. He can swap to a new angle. He can get the same scene but done more powerfully, and it feels like everyone's at 100% the whole time because they've probably been shooting all day and they're just giving it their all
Hmm.
for this guy who is a master at his craft.
Yeah. But yeah, now we can go to the Apollo Island.
Right, so Odysseus this whole time has been kind of struggling with his faith in the gods, his faith in Athena, and following and defying what they want. And he's told specifically that if they eat Apollo's cattle, that his men will die. And they're stuck on this island for an unknown period of time, but it's been a very long time. It's been a test, and they finally cave in without him knowing. And he walks over there and he says, "Did you think that you could eat them when the sun is down and hide from Apollo?" And they're like, "No, we just wanted to do it so that you wouldn't know." And I
Hmm.
thought that whole sequence was pretty powerful because temptation is a big theme in this movie. Obviously, with the sirens, with Penelope, with the suitors, just almost everyone caving in and finding that willpower to continue on this path that you know you must go down, but it's so easy to choose the easy route. And that's honestly like the best metaphor for this movie is between choosing the easy route and having to pay for it or choosing the hard route and getting rewarded for it. I think that would probably sum up this movie and honestly the Odyssey story in a bow tie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was a good way just to end out, the main journey for Odysseus. Because obviously after this is where they go back to on the sea, but this is where Poseidon is really Poseidon and Zeus, because Zeus was not happy that they ate the cattle. But this is where, the ship obviously gets completely snapped in half, and all the men drown and die at sea besides Odysseus, and he ends up on Calypso's island, which um, this was something I was contemplating going into the film, how much Nolan would go into it, because Calypso's island, to my understanding, she has like a lot of women or servants with her that are very, let's just say, provocative. Let's say that. So I was wondering if Nolan was going to go that route, especially because, like, you know, the Oppenheimer, he did some sex scenes in that, and this was R rated. So I was like, I was wondering if Nolan was going to go that route, and he didn't. And I think honestly it was for the better, because obviously it's very heavily implied that like him and Odysseus and Calypso, they had a relationship for 7 years, and obviously they loved each other. But it seems more that it was not as, I mean, maybe it was a loving relationship, but it seems more like they were just there for each other rather than just like a very heavily implied sexual relationship, which it is more so in like the books and other versions, which I think made it better because it makes it, I guess, feel okay or better once eventually Odysseus and Penelope come together. But I thought it was good. I think Charlize Theron did pretty good in those scenes. I think those scenes were really beautiful too. I love the way those were shot. And another thing that I saw at another interview was Robert Pattinson was saying that his trailer was next to Matt Damon's trailer, and he said obviously they shoot stuff out of order, but he was like first maybe like a week or a couple weeks, like he would just hear Matt Damon screaming in his trailer, and he was like he thought like the guy was a psychopath. He's like, what the fuck is this guy doing? But then he realized this is when Matt Damon is playing the older Odysseus, and you can hear it in his voice. At the start of the film, he seems like younger and more powerful. By the time you see him have that really white beard and the white hair, his voice is very like raspy and has that like just it feels lost. It doesn't have that power in it anymore. And obviously that was Matt Damon, just absolutely destroying his voice. Another great thing he did for this role. But it's just great. It's phenomenal. I think my favorite aspect of the film is the journey home. I think Nolan did it so well because these are huge action set pieces with crazy shit that happens, and he executed it to perfection. I don't think he could have done any better on any of them. Um, and I think you know we haven't touched on it too much yet, but like back in home at Ithaca with Penelope and Telemachus and the suitors and all that. I think he did those scenes really well too because I wouldn't say I was worried about those scenes going in, but I was definitely thinking to myself, I'm like, I feel like I could see people getting maybe bored by them just in comparison to like fighting a Cyclops and like dealing with Circe. I was like, I wonder how they're gonna toe that line. But I think he did a great job with it and keeping. That's really where the emotionality for me comes in. The two scenes where like Penelope and Telemachus are talking like in her room, and then when they go to like that little outdoor like castle roof area, whatever you want to call it. Those scenes, I wouldn't say I had tears coming down my face, but they definitely I felt that emotion, I felt that tightness in my chest because I was like, imagine being Penelope, like your husband's lost, he's been lost for 20 years, and now you have to deal with facing the fact that your son is probably going to die because you're unwilling to marry somebody else. She's just at a total lose lose in every scenario she picks, and it's just Anne Hathaway, man. She just to me, like I said, she's my standout performance, my number one of the film. I think everybody's really great, but I think she completely just loses herself in the role, and she does so well, man, so well.
Absolutely. There's a line that I think back to in The Dark Knight that Heath Ledger gives. It's that when people are about to die, they show you their true colors. And while not everyone is on death's doorstep at all times in this movie, they are severely tested, and it really strips them down and shows you who they are, and that's, human beings. And that's a theme again that is repeated throughout the film, is that they are no gods, they are just men and people
Hmm.
going through things. And wow, like they are tested severely. It was like I was reading the book of Job, and I don't know how familiar you are with that book, but they go through literally everything and everything, and they're tested so severely. And again, they just have to hang on and have faith in the gods despite it all. And Odysseus is probably the only character in this movie that is able to cling to his faith and be reborn from it. Honestly, that that scene where he's rebuilding the ship and he's afloat underwater, and they're talking about losing control and letting your spirit be free, like that was so powerful to me. I almost cried, but that was probably the most emotional moment in the movie for me personally, next to a scene I'm going to talk about pretty soon. But just really powerful
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. We're about to roll into obviously when Odysseus gets washed up on shore at Ithaca, and I'll mention this real quick. It's really interesting. A couple years ago, I think 2023 or 2024, Ray Fiennes had a film called The Return, which is the story of Odysseus, but it's just from the standpoint of when he washes up on shore to when he obviously does that final, you know, making his bow and doing the thing. And I think it's really interesting because I was obviously that film came out a few years ago and I actually saw it in theaters and it's pretty fresh in my mind. And I hate doing comparisons and but when I first watched this film I was like, okay, I wonder how it's going to compare to the Ray Fiennes performance because while I don't think the Return movie was that good, I think Ray Fiennes as Odysseus was very good. And I was like, his ending scene was very good when he strung the bow, and fought off all the suitors. I was like, I wonder how Matt Damon is going to be with it. And we'll get into it a little bit more, but I think Matt Damon did it very well. And it's all the elements coming together. It's Ludwig's score kicking in. It's the emotions of Anne Hathaway in that scene as she's like about to walk away back into her room, and then she hears the little kind of what is that long instrument called?
Like a
Where
harp.
yes, a harp. It has that harp music sound to it. Yep. Oh, man, it's so great. I don't want to jump right to the end yet. I'll let you kind of take the reins of it, but it's
Hmm.
this last like 40 minutes is just perfection.
Yeah, and this is kind of where I started picking the puzzle pieces up together and be like, okay, like I see where this is going. Not that I haven't familiarized myself with this story, but this is when things kind of kicked into high gear. And
Hmm.
he reintroduces himself to Telemachus, who I'm assuming he hasn't met since he was a toddler, but
Yeah.
he introduces himself as Sinon. He says that he kind of speaks about Odysseus himself in third person, which
Hmm.
I think just kind of goes in line with this new aspect of his character where he's stripped of everything and he goes along the same kind of path that what's her name from Game of Thrones, Arya Stark goes on, and he kind of discards his
Yeah.
identity and he starts new as Sinon, and he comes to Ithaca and he realizes that there's no one on his side beside his son and his loyal servant. And I just really like the scene where he shows up to the castle and he says his goodbyes to his dog and he dies peacefully. Um, Anyone who's been a pet owner, I think, can relate to that scene in a sense. I certainly thought about
That
go for it.
that on this watch with you, obviously I saw that scene the two other times, but on this watch, it hit me. I didn't have tears down my face, but I was like, man, I was just like that. It's so emotional because I just recently put down my dog right at the end of 2025 in December, and I was very close to my dog, especially his last like 5 years. Like I really got close to him because I've had dogs my whole life, but I was always the kid in the family that was like, no, I don't want a dog. Like I don't want that responsibility. But I don't know why on this third watch when Odysseus walks up to him and just pets him, and then you obviously see like his tail go limp, and then you see him obviously stop breathing. I was just like, fuck. I was like, Nolan did it again. Oh, that's another thing I want to mention really quickly too. Everybody says that Nolan writes women characters poorly and that he doesn't have enough emotions in his film. This film is super emotional, and I think all the woman characters are actually written better, or most of them are just as good as the male characters. I think like Odysseus is like the standout male character, but I think Penelope, Circe, I think Calypso, I think Lupita when she goes on screen for Helen of Troy, all are written very well. So that's just a little side thing I want to mention. But
Absolutely. I don't like that argument either, but I
yeah,
love that little silent agreement slash acknowledgement that him and Telemachus share when he's not he doesn't reveal his identity to him, but it's painfully obvious, and you know that that scene where he says like, Odysseus isn't here right now, but he would be awfully proud of his son to see how much he's grown. That scene was touching, and just their
Yeah.
chemistry was really good. Um, so then he storms his own castle and he goes down to this banquet where Robert Pattinson's crew have just been ransacking this place and mistreating uh, the kingdom entirely. And this is when he finally meets Antinous. Is that his name? And he
Yeah.
he's a force as well as his henchmen, which I don't have the name for, but um, they're brutal and they just think of him as this beggar. And there's a lot of classism at play here, but what's really powerful is when he starts talking to him and he gives him the little artifact that Sinon gave him when he told him to give this to his brother because he replaced him and deceived him in the Greek army. He was supposed to go fight in the war, in the Trojan War with Odysseus, but he's a coward. That's his whole character. And he is really distraught about this, and this kind of breaks his whole facade. And then Telemachus calls off the banquet, and you see Penelope announce the challenge, the infamous challenge, and
Hmm.
he thinks that it's hopeless, but Odysseus tells him, "Oh, he's gonna have a fucking weapon in there," and no one is able to tune the string except Sinon, and he delivers a crazy arrow through 12 axes.
I want. Yeah, I wanted to say before that too. I think my favorite, I guess, whole sequence in the film is the Cyclops sequence. That just, like I said, oh my god, it just makes me so happy. That's so good. I just love that type of filmmaking, and I really am like becoming a more horror fan over the past 3 years. So that's why I love that. But by far my favorite acting is when Odysseus is disguised as the beggar and he goes sits at the stairs of Penelope, and they have like it's a long scene. It's like at least 3 to 4 minutes, and they're just talking about because Penelope's under the impression that this is a man that fought with Odysseus. Obviously, it is Odysseus, but they're going through it, and it's just oh my the restraint that Matt Damon shows because obviously, I mean, I can't imagine being away from the love of your life for 20 years and then you finally are sitting feet away from her but you can't tell her that it's you. It's like that restraint because he knows it's not just returning back home like a Megamenon did. Like he just returned home open arms, but he didn't resolve the issues that were there. Odysseus has to take his time and resolve the issues before he can be open arms. And you can really see the restraint Matt Damon does in that performance. It's so fantastic, and I love that's where he does the speech of like where he's making it seem like yeah, what if Odysseus realized that night what they did was wrong? That whole speech he does, and then when he puts his hand out to Zendaya's Athena, I was like, oh my god! I was like, that's fantastic, dude. It got me so emotional. I'm just like, that's how you wrap a character arc perfectly right there. He does it so well. It's
Hmm.
just fuck. It's
And they
amazing.
say his movies are so stoic and that there's no emotion found in them. But this is really where the movie was made for me. And then the movie was already made, but this is the
Yeah.
emotional peak for me. And that scene was just insane. I don't have too many regrets in life, but I could heavily relate to Odysseus in that scene where he's just kind of reliving the events in his head and just wondering if his wife still loves him even after he broke Zeus's law and defied the gods and stood against everything that he stands for in that moment. And there's a ton of metaphors you can apply to this in everyday life, which these Greek stories they're still told today because that's what they were applied to do, and to make these big figures and help them apply to the stories today. But that scene was wonderful, and it is first shown as the siege of Troy, and you don't really get that perspective from Odysseus's side, and you just see this epic ransacking and almost victorious moment when they finally open those gates, which is underscored by some amazing music, and then it flips back to the end of the film where he you see his perspective on things, and it's just horrific what is happening. You see women, children being slaughtered, men just consumed by wrath and this blind rage against everything in their path, and it was just horrific on all fronts. I mean, and you also get the reveal with Zendaya's character that she's just a vestige of Athena who they defied at Troy by knocking down her statue. Again, another poster,
Hmm.
and it was just terrific. And I was honestly, I'm right now at a loss for words, but my jaw was dropped by that point.
And the score in that scene too. Not the Troy score is great where they're fighting, but the one where it's like that very soft like woodwind instrument, dude, it's just I don't know, man. I don't know how to describe it. It's just you just feel it. You
It's so
just feel it in
somber,
your heart.
and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you get this feeling that, like, you know, almost like an Oppenheimer, like the war is won, but at like what cost?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That's honestly what I was thinking a lot of because uh, I feel like a lot of people were upset with Nolan with a little bit with Oppenheimer. They were like, he should have showed the fallout of Japan, like what Japan was like after the bomb. I'm like, this story is not about World War II and the whole scope of it. It is about one man, J. Robert Oppenheimer, and how his process was through this whole thing. It's the same with the Odyssey. This is not about, oh, I want a post game interview with Troy after they got sieged that night. That's not what it's about. It's about how Odysseus felt after these horrific acts happened. And that's exactly what I thought because when Oppenheimer, after they do the Trinity test, and then obviously when you see they take the bombs out on truck to go transport them, obviously to be eventually dropped on Japan, you see him have this sense of like, yes, we accomplished this, but like you said, at what cost? Now the real shit's about to happen, and then you see it with Odysseus. Obviously, he's very excited that his plan worked, hiding in the horse and then opening the gate. But then pretty quickly after, once he puts on his armor and starts walking through the city, he's like, okay, well, technically this went great, but now look at the cost of it once it actually happened. Like this is actually not really that good. And obviously the whole this movie revolves around the crux of Zeus's law, and Odysseus is the man that broke it the worst. So that's kind of why he got the worst of luck and was gone for so long. But it's just done so well. It's done so
It was a
well.
sobering moment, and it comes right before the climax of the film, and it's just a great test again for the characters right before the final few scenes. But you really feel for Penelope in the next scene when they finally get to the challenge, and she's willing to entertain these challenges, but you can tell through her voice and just like this
Hmm.
snappiness that comes from it that she's lost faith.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that. I love when because they all start to do the challenge, and you can see there's like a little bit like fuck you guys and her kind of stance and her swagger. But then as they all start to do it, I feel like she's starting to realize, obviously, okay, well, she knows none of them is going to accomplish it, but then it starts to hit her like there will be no replacing Odysseus. But she's like, probably I'm just going to have to marry Pattinson's character and just say fuck it. But then you, I feel like she had a feeling that Odysseus the beggar was Odysseus a little bit once he volunteered, even before he strung it and made the sound. Because you see that once the beggar Odysseus comes up, she's like in tears, and she's like, you can tell that she's like, I'm begging him to string this thing and shoot it. And just Anne Hathaway, man,
Hmm.
it's I say it all the time. I love actors. I love great performances. I feel every bit of her performance. Like I could like I feel it in my chest
And
every time I've watched it.
that's one change that I think should be given a point in Nolan's favor is when we get to that point in the story, usually like iterations of the Odyssey, um, they usually just have her, loss of faith and, she's ready to
Hmm.
pick up the next suitor and she it looks like she's kind of ready to be remarried, but in this it really adds dimension to her character because yeah, she announces she's ready for remarriage, but you can tell from her state of mind that she would not be ready to be with anyone except Odysseus, which I really appreciate that change, and it adds more character than being this one-dimensional person that needs saving.
I love too when she met with Pattinson's character in her room where she's sewing the thing, and he says to her like, "Haven't you had enough? Like, aren't you tired?" And she like kind of has like a like she just lets out this air. And you can tell in her mind she's probably like, you know what? Yeah, fuck, I've had enough and all that. But then she quickly snap. You can see it like in her facial expression. She snaps back. She's like, I'll wait till the end of time. She's like, you can just tell she's not going to give up on Odysseus, and it's just great. And I think just this being like my third watch, I'm just picking up on the little stuff more and more and more because this film is like so. There's so much coming at you, and there's so much in your face. Like it gets overwhelming in a good way though. But I think this. I mean, I always kind of say this. You should always give films like this multiple viewings, and I think you just get rewarded more. It just feels more rewarding, and yeah, I mean we're almost to the end, but just once Odysseus goes God mode, it's just when that score kicks in, man, and it's just and this is what I was saying to Jathan. I felt once again I felt really bad about the seats we ended up getting. Um, we got there early too. It's just like it's a good thing it sold out and everybody was there, but that scene is done really sequence is done really well. But I think just in the seats we were, it looked a little choppy and blurry. But it's so good, man. It's and then when Telemachus gets in the mix too, and he's trying to fight, and oh man, I just loved it. I loved every second of it, and it's a long action sequence too. It's damn near like 8 minutes long. It's
I'd
pretty
say
long.
longer.
It's at least 5 to 10 for sure.
Hmm. Uh, we're kind of jumping all over the place, but I just want to mention real quick that with the
Yeah.
audience, like, coming back from California, where, movie going is almost religious and people are there all the time, Massachusetts has a pretty good amount of moviegoers, but I didn't definitely not expect the turnout that we got, and to be there that early, that was a good feeling just for the future of
Hmm.
cinema, just from audience point of view. But yeah,
No, definitely. I when I saw Oppenheimer 3 summers ago, that was pretty much sold out. I don't think fully, but it was pretty much. When I went to AMC last night for the other two showings, my 6 o'clock showing was sold out. I think it was all sold out. And then my 10 p.m. showing, there was maybe 10 seats available. And then obviously tonight, when we just went to the IMAX Reading, um, we got there at like we walked into the building at like 6:20, and we probably sat down at 6:30. And we had to sit in the front 2 rows because people had already filled it up. I was like, holy shit, I couldn't believe it. And it's great because people on Twitter, just like either real people or just the bots, were complaining about the Elliot Page thing, complaining about Lupita Nyong'o. They were complaining that a bunch of things. Oh, this movie's not going to be that good. It's not going to make that
I
much
like where
money.
you called them
This film's gonna,
bots, because that's what
yeah.
they
I
are. They
mean,
regurgitate everything.
it, yeah. This film's gonna do very well. I'm so excited. I was just saying to Jathan on the ride home. After this weekend, I'm probably gonna be very tired from going to the movie theater. As much as I love it, when you do it like 8 times in the span of 3 4 days, you get tired. But I don't take these moments for granted, and this might seem cheesy or dumb to people. It's like movies come out every week. You can just watch movies whenever you want. You can just watch it at home. Nothing beats the theater experience, and especially for a film like this, the opening weekend. Even if you didn't see it Thursday night, Friday night, the opening weekend, and even the following week, just the atmosphere. It's unmatched. You can't get those moments back. I say it a lot to some guys I work with at my older job, because me and one of the guys went to Sinners opening weekend together, and we always say to each other like, we'll never get that moment back. Like we both rewatched Sinners a bunch. Like Sinners is one of my favorite movies of all time. I will never get that moment back. So, as much as I get to experience the Odyssey and IMAX on these premium formats, I'm gonna take advantage of it as much as I possibly can. If that means I have to sleep 3.5 hours like I did last night in order to go to work in the morning, then fuck it. I don't care, because the for me, and like I said, we're film obsessed people. These are memories that will last a lifetime. We were talking about it while we were sitting in the previews. We were talking about like Infinity War and what that meant to us. Yeah, Jathan's got the physical ticket. And it's nice that I would say, me and Jathan have been friends for a while, but I would say once we were kind of in our last year or two of high school, that's where we really got to, become closer friends and get these great movie theater experiences with. And I feel like for the past 5 to 6 years, each year we get like one, two, three movies that are like these big things we'll never forget. And the Odyssey for me is definitely one of those experiences I'll never forget. Seeing it for the first time, seeing it with you, being in that IMAX theater is just it's special stuff. And like I said, it really means a lot to me. I know we've been laughing and joking around and stuff, but like this type of stuff means a lot to me. It just motivates me. It gives me a reason to turn off my brain and just live in the moment, which is a very hard thing for me to do. But when I go
Likewise.
when I go to these things, man, I get taken into another world. For the next week, I'm just gonna be thinking about the Odyssey. I don't even want to watch any of the movies in my house right now because I'm so Odyssey pilled right now.
Yeah, and you should see how many movies this dude owns. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you watch this movie on a phone, I'm gonna get Odysseus to drive a arrow straight through your heart. But that's what he ends up doing in the last few scenes, and that was just so cathartic to see because you've been watching this guy go on this journey for 2.5 hours at this point, and you're ready for these guys to get shut up. And it mentally, I was thinking that in that moment, he's faced all these monsters and traveled this insanely dangerous world. And it felt like to me when he finally took off that cloak and, started butchering these guys, it felt like he brought all that shit right to Ithaca and he was the monster at that point because he
Hmm.
he literally went like Kratos, like he was unstoppable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the story. There's some quick like superlative things I wanted to ask you. We'll kind of go back and forth and answer them, and we've kind of answered it a little bit throughout the film. But I would say, what is your favorite action sequence, and then what is your favorite singular scene of the film? If you want time to think, I can go to mine because I
Oh
definitely know what they
God,
are.
there's so many to choose from. Um,
Yeah.
Action sequence, I gotta give hands down to the Siege of Troy. Um,
Yeah.
it's shown in a lot of promotional material, but for good reason. The score, just lighting. Um, and in this sense, I'm talking in particular about when they first drop out of the horse's belly, and just
Yeah.
being in the belly was terrifying because and they even And they're like poking holes through it, you know, they're stabbing it and they gotta like fucking cover this dude's mouth when he's getting stabbed by it. And it was just the whole beginning, middle, and end of it all was terrific. And then favorite scene, I'm gonna have to flash forward again to the siege of Troy when he's witnessing the aftermath of all that he's brought upon this city. That was just so emotionally resonant with me. And I would just say my favorite set piece slash background piece, you know, get some extra credit here, was when they go to the
Hmm.
underworld. That place was beautiful. God, I would watch a movie just set there. Like it was so beautiful there and so dark and mysterious, and you know, it felt like they shouldn't have been there, but it they needed to go there to receive messages from the dead. And just seeing all his sins behind him, all the men that he's led to death from his journeys, it felt like there was thousands of them there, and I felt exactly the emotions that he was trying to convey there.
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite action sequence. I mean, I already said it was by far the Cyclops. I was looking forward to that so much, and they were doing so much promotional talk about that, and they showed it a lot in the trailers, and I was like, ah, man, maybe we've seen it all, and maybe it won't hit the same in theaters. Just crazy, like I said, just that shit makes me hard, dude. That I loved it, so great. And then I think favorite scene is really tough. I would either have to go when Odysseus talks to Penelope for the first time, but when he's disguised as the beggar, or I would have to do the scene where Telemachus comes back, obviously from Sparta, and he talks to Penelope, and she's like, "Well, do you have any news of your father?" And he has to lie to her, but she breaks down again, and just like he's like, "Well, would you rather have, just marry somebody and have, peace?" And she's like, I want Odysseus, and storms out. I just love that scene. It's really great. A couple more I have quickly, just might as well keep going about them. You don't have to say the score name, like the actual song name, because I don't know if you have them memorized yet, but what score impacted you the most? Like, you can describe it by the scene, I guess.
Okay, I know the name of the score because, and I was praying to God that when we got in the car, because I knew you're gonna play the soundtrack, that you're gonna play this track, the track
Hmm.
Odysseus when he's in Troy,
Yeah.
like with the wood pipes. We've already talked about it, but just
Oh my god.
beautiful, beautiful. And I want to name off a few more, but after we get off this, I'm
Hmm.
just gonna have to familiarize myself because front to back, and I will say this is the greatest strength of the film to me was absolutely the score. It was the first thing me and Nick talked about outside of the screening and the logistics of the theater and whatnot. But I genuinely believe if you have no interest in movies, that you could pop this score on and it would be its own experience in itself. It was just terrific, and Ludwig is just crazy. Like it doesn't matter what he's working on; he produces some stellar work.
Hmm. Yeah. Ludwig he's my goat. He has been since Tenet. Um, I love the Tenet soundtrack and I love the Oppenheimer soundtrack. They're really bombastic and they're really in your face. This one, obviously, it does have some, pretty intense tracks, like the Troy Siege. That's pretty intense, but like there's so many just whether it's like the woodwind instruments, like we were saying, the flute's just a nice, easy, breezy kind of feel to it. It just like you just feel like you're just in this nice, calm flow state, and it's just so nice. My favorite track that I've been listening to I mean, I love the whole score album, but the Laestrygonians, which is like the giants, particularly in the point in the song where it goes to that woodwind instrument, and that kind of happens once all the men are jumping on the ship when they're running from the giants. That's my favorite song or score track, but it's so great, man. I just can't put into words. Like Ludwig is just he's just like I said, he's my goat, but he's by far one of the best working today. There's no arguing that anymore. He has the track record, and even if you just take his three Nolan films, that's good enough. But all the other stuff he's done, like The Mandalorian and Grogu, that's such an iconic score. The Black Panther score, a lot of people forget that. Black Panther's crazy. Like obviously that
Those
soundtrack that
drums.
yeah, obviously that soundtrack is very good, even though, I don't like to speak this guy's name, Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar did a really good job making that Black Panther album. I'll tip my cap to that. But Ludwig made the score for that. Obviously, Ludwig just won the Oscar for Sinners. Like this guy's catalog is crazy. Creed. He's done so many great things. And I think this is kind of, I don't want to get into this discussion already because the film just came out, and the award season is not till the end of this year, going into next year. Unfortunately, and this is not me being a negative Nancy, I don't think the Odyssey is going to have the uh, award season hold that Oppenheimer did. I think it has potential to win a lot of technical awards. I don't really see any acting awards getting one, or I think nominations are going to be thin just because the characters just don't have enough time. I think obviously Odysseus has a lot of time, um, but I don't think this is a best actor winning performance. Not that it's not good. I just don't think I'm putting my mind in the Academy Award mind. And I don't see that. I think of what this film can probably win. I think we're gonna get a Hoyte van Hoytema cinematographer win potentially. I think we'll get a Ludwig win. I think we'll get a potentially a costume design. I think we'll definitely get production design,
That
stuff
should
like
be
that. But
easy.
I guess yeah, I
Dune
don't
might give
even
it
want
a
to get
run,
into this
but
because we're yeah. I think a lot. I mean, I went into this film thinking for sure. I was like, we're gonna get a Matt Damon nomination. We're gonna get a Pattinson nomination. We're gonna get a Anne Hathaway nomination. I think the only one that really has a 100%, not 100, but like a really strong chance is Anne Hathaway. Um, I think it might even be hard for Matt Damon, especially with some of the films that are coming out later this year. But like I said, that's not even to get negative on the film. But I was saying to Jathan, there are like one or two things throughout the film that I just are a little nitpicky with, even though it's a 5 out of 5 for me. One of them is performances. Performances are great, but they didn't impact me the way that like Oppenheimer performances did. Like I walked out of that film being like, okay, Killian Murphy, Oscar secured. Robert Downey Jr., Oscar secured. Emily Blunt, probably Oscar secured. She didn't win it that year, but she was nominated. Like that's what I was thinking. I was like, these are career best. I think in this film, when we're talking about the big hitters, Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, and Pattinson, they're all fantastic. I don't think this is their best performance of any of their careers. There's films I like performance wise a little bit more, but like I said, they're all phenomenal. I just think they're not like these crazy, crazy performances. They do crazy stuff, but I think this film is just unfortunately one of the films that you're not bigger than the program. You hear that a lot in sports, like no individual's bigger than the program. The story of the Odyssey is the spectacle. And you just kind of, they brought great performances, but you're not looking at the performances over the story. And then my second thing was that Christopher Nolan obviously is a writer director, and he has obviously been adapting screenplays. Obviously, Oppenheimer was adapted from American Prometheus. The Prestige was adapted from the book. I don't think it's called The Prestige, but that's adapted from a book. Obviously, Batman is adapted from the comics and other movies. And I will say, I don't think this is one of Christopher Nolan's strongest screenplays. Like I said, I don't think the screenplay is bad at all. It's great. It's really great. There's great lines. There's great dialogue. It just felt like
it's a long
he
movie.
he wrote. It's a long movie, but I feel like he probably wrote the screenplay. And this is me speculating. He probably wrote the screenplay and made it very digestible for audiences, and spent more time on doing the technical aspects, which I think is fine. I think that's totally fine because this film needs A plus technical aspects, which it does great. I just think the screenplay just didn't keep up with it a little bit. Which, like I said, it's still a great screenplay. He still did a great job, but I think Nolan is an underrated writer, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for it. But I don't think this is his best work in terms of writing, but it's still great.
I agree with you. Absolutely. There's some interesting points you
Hmm.
brought up that I didn't really consider.
Yeah.
But is there anything like else that you want to tackle specifically to like the events of the film?
No, not really. I mean, we got all the main points. I think what makes me give this film a 5 out of 5, just like perfect for me, is the feeling that it gives me. And like I was saying earlier, on each rewatch, it's getting better, which is a great sign. You always want that. It's getting better. I'm loving it more. Like I said, from a filmmaking standpoint, you won't see a better film for many many years, in my opinion. It's done so well. Like I said, I had little nitpicky things here or there, but that's just more so on me. It doesn't really affect my score because I'd still give it a great score. But this is Nolan showing his true craftsmanship, and I normally always give a lot of praise to like the cast of a movie. The crew of this movie needs, I think, arguably more praise than the cast because they everything is shot on location. They went to Morocco. They went to all these countries. They had to climb mountains. They had to film in these old castles. They had to make new cameras, new equipment. The crew of this movie, every single member deserves an Oscar because it's just this is probably the best piece of crew altogether filmmaking I've seen. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I see all these TikToks that talk about, so and so told me to sit through the credits because of just how many people it takes to work on these movies. And that same thing can be said here. Like, there's a saying
Hmm.
in film school that it takes a village. And this, again, this movie would not be possible without Christopher Nolan. Yes, was terrific in his leadership and being able to maintain budget and turning this film in ahead of schedule, but just
Hmm.
each and every member of the crew, I think, absolutely deserves a round of applause, and they really are
Absolutely.
the unsung heroes.
Hmm. This movie would not have worked without them. Not even close. Um, yeah, I think that's all we got on the Odyssey. That was definitely. I feel like we went pretty in depth with it. Now we're just gonna kind of close off the episode with Christopher Nolan ranking, which is something I'm looking forward to, but something I'm not looking forward to because for me this is like making me choose who's my favorite child. I mean, some of these are pretty easy for me to rank, but as you can see, when I get through my list, I'll give my ratings. A lot of these are 5 out of 5 for me, so it's like damn near possible. But I guess I'll start Jathan just because you've seen 12 of his feature films. I've seen 13, so I might as well just get 13 out of the way. Then we'll go back and forth. But number 13, I have Following. Obviously, this is Christopher Nolan's first feature film. It very much feels like a student film. It's not a student film. He didn't go to film school, but it has that tone and feeling to it. It's fine, nothing special. I really enjoyed it when I first saw it. I've only seen it once, but yeah, it's somebody you always got to start somewhere, but that's where it is.
Hmm. And I've after the Odyssey, I have seen all of Nolan's films besides Tenet, which I'm saving for a special occasion. But number 12 to start off my list, I also have Following. Again, you can kind of see, his beginnings and just learning the craft, and that's perfectly fine. It was very reminiscent of a Hitchcock plot to me, and I think it
Mm,
works here. One of my favorite rules to filmmaking is that less is more, and he didn't, go over his pay grade with the script here, but he certainly pays homage to those films, and there's a lot of neat little Easter eggs. Um, if you have time to watch it, I would say it's worth it.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, so my number, what is it, 12? Yeah, my number 12 is Insomnia, which I did rewatch before the Odyssey. It was part of my rewatch. This was actually one of the first Nolan films I ever saw. I think I saw The Dark Knights, I saw Inception, and then I believe Insomnia was the next one I saw. I got it in like this three-pack Blu-ray when I was in high school. I really enjoy it. I think it's really good. I always mention on here I love detective films. I will say on this rewatch though, it went from a 4 to a 3.5. I did bump it down a little bit. I just don't think um, the detective story is very simple, and I gotta be honest. You might be mad at me. I don't think Robin Williams is all that great in this film. I think it's more so on the writing. I don't really think it was his fault. I just think his character is very uninteresting. I really like Al Pacino in it. I really like Hilary Swank in it, and I will say too, this is a film that Nolan did not write. This was very heavily a Warner Brothers film that they kind of just threw at Christopher Nolan, let him direct it, but they very much, you can tell they had their hands on his shoulder while making this. But, it's a fun, good film. I think if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth checking out. But I didn't love it as much as I did when I was in high school.
My number 11, I have Insomnia as well, and I find it funny that you bring up Robin Williams because I know how much you know that I like him. But I honestly
Hmm.
agree. Maybe it's just me not liking him, seeing him in this antagonistic role, but he seemed very one note, and
Yeah, it's
they
just,
try to play this mystery with him and Al Pacino over who's the real bad guy, but you know full well that Robin Williams is up to no good in this, and I like Al Pacino in this movie, and it's funny because I'm pretty sure he's your favorite actor, and Christopher Nolan being your favorite director. And that was interesting to see from your point of view because how often do you get that matchup? But he's
yeah.
pretty good in this role, and it honestly just reaffirms my beliefs in him as an actor, and just you know I don't want to use RDJ's Tropic Thunder line that the script reads him in this sense, but he really does. He has that gravity about him, and he's always inserting these lines here and there, and it just shows how much he understands film and, his abilities as an actor and what he's able to provide. And I think he does certainly elevate it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, my number 11. So from here on up, it's either a 4.5 or a 5 star. So I am in love with all of these and I rewatch them all the time. But number 11 is The Dark Knight Rises, which I'm honestly not happy I have it this low. But doing my rewatches of his other films and rewatching this, I just have to put the other ones above it. But I love The Dark Knight Rises. I love the arc that Bruce Wayne goes on in this. I think it's the most emotional in the Dark Knight trilogy. I think Anne Hathaway's really good. I think Tom Hardy's great. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt's great. Like I said, it's a 4.5 out of 5. For some reason, this film gets so much hate. I don't really understand why. I get there's some stuff that people don't like with the final battle. If you just look in the background, like the background actors aren't really acting that well. It got a little too big, I think, for Christopher Nolan. Um, but it's still great. This is one of the Nolan films that makes me cry. Yes, a Batman film makes me cry, absolutely. But I love The Dark Knight Rises. Um, but as of right now, it has to be number 11. But that does not mean I don't like it. I love it.
Number 10, I have Batman Begins. And to be perfectly honest with you, after watching Matt Reeves' Batman, it has kind of left a stain on Nolan's Batman trilogy and other Batman films for me. But I think it's perfectly fine as a superhero film. It's pretty good. Um, I just think they spend a lot of time with the League of Shadows, which I think is okay, but they kind of shoehorn Scarecrow in here, and I just don't think it perfectly works for me, but this is a
Mm,
perfectly fine introduction to the character and origin story.
yeah. Um, my number 10 is Memento, which I really love. I've seen it not as much as other Nolan films. Like most of Nolan films, I've seen at least 5 to 10 times, pretty much all of them. Memento, I'm not there yet with that, but I love it. I just rewatched it 2 weeks ago. Guy Pearce is great. Carrie Ann Moss is great. And a lot of people say like, "Oh, Nolan is his Tenet movie is so confusing and Inception. Like, when did he start doing this?" Nolan's been doing it since Memento back in 2000. I love this film. It's so simple. It's an LA movie. It feels very it's low budget, but it feels the screenplay is so rich. I think this is probably his top three screenplay for sure, and it just elevates. And for this to be your sophomore film is crazy. This film is amazing.
My number 9, I have The Dark Knight Rises, which I do think is better than Batman Begins. And, Nick kind of already talked about this, but it is pretty messy. I don't love or really care for the twist with Talia al Ghul toward the end.
Yeah,
Um, I thought Tom Hardy as Bane was terrific. I love that voice that he does. It's so funny, but it's so interesting to me at the same time. And I think that Batman is honestly kind of a pussy in this movie, but that hole that he climbs out of in the journey he goes on, it was very cathartic, and I just think it's a miracle that we even got that film produced with the untimely death of Heath Ledger.
yeah. Nolan didn't even without the Heath Ledger death, he was not really like I don't know how much he wanted to come back, but yeah. My number 9, and every time I rewatch this, it seems to climb the rankings. So who knows? It might be even higher one day. But Dunkirk, I think this film is so intimate, and I don't mean intimate like in relationship sense. I mean intimate like you feel like you are there with these men, and it has three different viewpoints. It has like they kind of label it as like air with Tom Hardy's character, the beach with the main British troops in Dunkirk, and then the sea, which you have that kind of I forget it's a family, and they have
Killian
like
Murphy's
their son's
character
friend,
too.
or like yeah, Killian Murphy as character goes on that boat. But yeah, when I rewatch it, I just every time I rewatch it, I forget just how amazing it is. It makes me really emotional because it's an emotional film, and you feel bad for these soldiers because a lot of them are just chill, like they're kids, they're teenagers, early 20s, and they just got thrown into this disgusting, awful war, and they had to fend for themselves pretty much. And there's a lot of humanity in it. The ending is like it warms your heart. For a war film, it ends very positive, and you see a lot of people just come together. And I personally think there's another film that's Nolan's most underrated, but a lot of people say this one is, and I agree with them. It's kind of a masterpiece that doesn't get talked about enough.
Funny enough, I have number 8. I have Dunkirk, and I think this film, if we're talking the Odyssey being action packed, this film is nonstop, and I think it's really
Yeah,
fun. I like what you said about the script. I love the 3 points of view that we get. I think that was something that he hadn't really tackled before, and it was refreshing. And it just really felt like he had fun with this film, and it felt like something that he was toying around for a bit, and he kind of got around to experimenting with, and it's what we ended up getting. So I really enjoyed it.
yeah. My number 8 is Batman Begins. This is the last 4.5 out of 5. All those other ones I was talking about were 4.5 out of 5 too. Every time I rewatch this one as well, it goes up in rankings. As I said earlier in the episode, I watched this in theaters for the first time back in January. Probably like my eighth watch all time in my life, but it's so great. I think this is the second best origin story superhero film. My number one would be Spider Man from 2002 or 2001, the Sam Raimi one. I think that's the best one, but I think it's very followed right behind by Batman Begins. And I think, like you were saying, what Matt Reeves did with the Batman, I think is probably the best in terms of like true Batman stuff. But I think Christopher Nolan brought the Batman back to life in movies because the previous movies just weren't doing all that great. Very campy. So I think you can say what you want about Nolan's trilogy. I'm not pointing the finger to you. I kind of the audience because I know there's a lot of mixed feelings on his trilogy. But I think you can't deny Christopher Nolan brought Batman back into a more serious note in films, and I think Batman Begins is a large part of that.
Absolutely. Number seven, I have Inception. And to be honest, I was stoned than a motherfucker when I first saw this movie. It was,
Have you not rewatched it since
I
then?
haven't, I do own it on Blu ray, but I was crossed while watching this. And I threw it on at like 2 in the morning, and I was like, I need to obliterate my brain right now. And it did the job perfectly. There's a lot of great actors here, and I think that this one is probably going to be one of Nolan's more divisive films to the general audience, and I think it's kind of the first one where one of the biggest criticisms toward him was that he kind of makes confusing films for the sake of being confusing. But
Hmm.
I love how deep they dig the rabbit hole in here, and that ending was terrific. I definitely do for a rewatch.
Well, my number seven is the same thing, Inception. 2 days ago, though, this was number five. So that just lets you know how great his filmography is. To me, Inception and all the films above this are 5 out of 5 perfect. On the rewatch I just did, I loved it. Again, I've seen it multiple times. This was the first Nolan film I watched outside of the Dark Knight trilogy, so it really means a lot to me. This film, to my knowledge, is the first Leonardo DiCaprio film I ever watched as well. So he probably is my second favorite actor of all time. So that means a whole lot to me. On my rewatch, I love it each time I watch it, and I think the standout in this movie for me, obviously Leo's great, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's great, but I think Cillian Murphy is he. I think he gives the best performance in the whole film. He's awesome, and I feel like this is the film where Nolan really was established because this is coming off The Dark Knight, which was major that did so well, and I feel like since Inception, this is really where he gets these huge ensemble casts with great actors. I feel like Inception was really the turning point in his career, where we're like, okay, we're gonna let this guy kind of do whatever he wants, and we're just gonna roll with the punches. And obviously, we've been off to the races ever since then.
Number six, I have Memento, which when I was thinking of ranking his movies, I didn't think it would rank that high. But the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. And I first watched this on an airplane, and it was pretty late at night too. It might have been like 4 in the morning. I was like flying back here. And again, what you said, the script is amazing. Um,
Hmm.
I just love how creative it is. I it's so much to gush about, and yeah, I can see why studios saw this and they saw a filmmaker who has creative vision and a talent, and yeah, there's lots to love about Memento.
Yeah, I think next for me is my number six, and I'm surprised it jumped Inception for me, but on my rewatch of it, I'm like, this film is one of the best films ever. Is The Prestige. A little fun fact about me, if you didn't know, I don't even know if I really mentioned this to you, Jathan. Maybe I have, but when I was a kid, I was obsessed with magic tricks. Obsessed. My grandmother would take me to magic shows sometimes, like when I was really young. Then I kind of stopped doing it. But then she kind of got me back into it, and I think my early middle school days to like late middle school, I all I did nonstop was learn card tricks, try to make my own magic tricks, which I actually did. Like I came up with some, and then I would buy like those magic kits you see. So this film means a whole lot to me from that aspect. But even outside of that, the performances in this film, I think, do not get talked about enough. I think Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, these are some of their career best. I think it's one of Michael Caine's best. I think it's one of Scarlett Johansson's best. I think it's one of Regina Hall, not Regina Hall, Jesus Christ. Why am I blanking? Um, Rebecca Hall. I knew, not Regina Hall. One of Rebecca Hall's best. And I feel like this film is still kind of a underrated Nolan gem. I feel like maybe people have seen it once, maybe twice, but they kind of forget how the movie went. Go rewatch this one. It's spectacular. I love it. It means a whole lot to me. It reminds me of my childhood.
Number five, I have The Prestige, and you shown me this film for the first time, Nick, and I was captivated as well. Just so fun. The back and forth between Jackman and Bale, like you said, so intriguing,
Hmm.
and there's so many layers to the story, but at the same time, you're just on this ride. It's so ridiculous and it's so fun. I love this thing. Definitely need to rewatch and pick
Hmm.
up on
Yeah,
Blu-ray.
definitely. Yeah. Um, my number five, and I mean, this feels low, but it's just like I said, 5 out of 5. These are all 5 out of 5 perfects for me. It is the Odyssey. I have number five. I mean, on this list, it's one of my least watched, obviously, because all these other Nolan films I've seen many, 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 many times. I'm not gonna. We just talked about the Odyssey for an hour and a half. It's amazing. I do think this is probably where it's gonna lie. My top four, I think it's gonna be near impossible to kind of get those out of the top four. I mean, who Nolan's gonna be making films for a long time, so who the fuck knows? But it's gonna be hard for me to shake those out of my top four. But the Odyssey is great. We just talked about it. It's great.
This might sound kind of low, but
I already know what you're gonna
the
do.
Dark Knight,
Fucking idiot.
and I really do think that Christian Bale, you know, love you to death, but you got your chain snatched here by Heath Ledger. Like, this film has been talked about to death, but just terrific on all fronts, on the music, on screenplay. I think it's probably top three, and that's fuck it, top two, and just it's been taught in film school. It's been debated as the best superhero film. It's been debated as the best movie of all time, according to IMDb, and for good reason. Just amazing.
I will say though this though, just for the audience. When's the last time you've seen The Dark Knight and you don't even have it rated on Letterboxd? I just want to throw that
I'll
out
say
there.
this: I've seen it within the last 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, what do you have it at number four? That's still pretty high. So
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. So my number four is Interstellar, which another little fun fact. I asked for this movie for Christmas. I think when I was, I want to say 15, maybe 16, probably 15. I got it. The first time I played it, I played the first 35 to 40 minutes and turned it off. Because I was, I was expecting the space epic, and then it pretty much just starts off with the family dynamics on this corn farm. I was like, the fuck is going on? And this is before I really understood Christopher Nolan, and I don't think I watched it again till maybe 6 months after that. Once I gave it a full watch, and then ever since then, it's been one of my favorites. It just got re-released two years ago in December. I'm pretty sure you went, Jathan, when you were out in San Diego, I believe. I went to the local IMAX near me, and I was sitting there. Next, I was like it's in the middle seat, sitting next to two people I didn't know, and I was full on crying, like full on crying multiple times. Every time I watch Interstellar, I cry at the exact same moments. The first one is when Cooper goes back to the space station and sees his kids grown up, and I'm gonna cry thinking about it. When Murph tells him like, the only reason I'm calling you today is because you told me when I was a kid that when you come back, we might be the same age. And she says to him, well, today's that day. I'm the same age that you were when you left. And I'm crying now thinking about it. It kills me. It absolutely kills me. I think Interstellar is one of the greatest films ever. I'm literally crying right now. It kills me. I love it. Number four.
Number three, I have Interstellar, and I think it is a worthy successor to 2001. Two very different movies, but I definitely think it's his most emotional movie, clearly. And
Yeah. Oh my god. I can't. We're gonna have to move on.
it's one of my favorite IMAX experiences and movie theater experiences. When I last saw this, which was 1 or 2 years ago, I saw it with my friend. And Nolan movies get loud in IMAX, but even just the silence, like when the logs turn off when he's watching the transmissions from his family, and you just hear the empty ambience from the space station. It's like deafening, and it delivers daggers to the heart. Um, yeah, just ter-
Oh my god.
terrific ending, and it definitely started to make his name on the Rushmore of directors of his generation.
Yeah. We gotta move on. I can't think about that film. Like, dude, I'm not even faking it. It kills me. It just destroys me. Um, my number three is Oppenheimer. It's I think from a objective standpoint, I think it's Christopher Nolan's best work. It's perfect in every sense. I think it probably is his best screenplay. I think he gets probably some of the best performances. I mean, like The Prestige, like I said, I really like those performances. Obviously, Heath Ledger, Dark Knight, that's kind of untouched. Um, but yeah, all around the performances here are really strong. I was just already talking about like Killian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, crazy, and then you get like Casey Affleck, Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, Josh Hartnett, Benny Safdie, Kenneth Branagh, Matthew Modine, David Dalsmalchian. You just get so many people. It's just endless. It's endless, and it's just great performances. Um, 2023 was the year that I took film serious. Like I've always loved film. I've always loved going to the movie theater, but that was the year, which was like the back half of our freshman year of college, where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take this film thing serious and watch a whole lot of movies. And I started it like the beginning of 2023. So by the time Oppenheimer came out, I was already like 6 months into my film journey. And I look at this film as like kind of not like I said, not the start of my film journey, but kind of when I started to take all this stuff serious. And Oppenheimer is always going to have a very, very special place in my heart. Um, I remember the award season. That's like the first award season that I watched all the award shows for. Like I said, I went to see Oppenheimer, I think 10 times in theater altogether now. I've seen it like 12 times or 13 times, my total count. But this film is so perfect, and it means so, so much to me.
Number two, and this is how I'm feeling today. This could change, but I'm gonna let the recency bias win. I'm going with the Odyssey, and just lives up to the name in every sense. And I don't know how many more Christopher Nolan movies I'm gonna get in my lifetime, but these next two movies, they gave me such a deep, deep feeling of almost accomplishment for buying a ticket and being able to just witness it. I love the message. I love um, just what it means for me to sit in that seat, and that feeling I got that, film is powerful, it's here to stay. And it really solidified to me that it is immortal, and that, no matter how shit changes, it will exist in some form or another. So, still processing it, probably gonna 100% gonna see it again, and I can't wait to just keep absorbing it within these next month or so.
Yeah. What am I? My number two. Yeah, my number two is The Dark Knight. Um, I kind of already said it earlier. If this film was never made, I'm not sitting on this podcast talking about movies. There's no way that I'm a fan of movies like I am without The Dark Knight, plain and simple. I liked it a lot as a kid. I thought it was always really fun, really entertaining. When I was really young, when this came out, Heath Ledger's Joker really scared me. I was really scared of him. But I would say probably around eighth grade, ninth grade, I bought the Dark Knight trilogy. Well, I asked for it for Christmas, and ever since then, I watch it multiple times a year. Like I'm not joking. Like 3 to 4 times a year, I watch it. Um, it sounds dumb to say, but this film gives me hope. I really like Bruce Wayne and Batman in this because it's the famous quote of the movie. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And it's just, I know that's like a big cliche thing, but I think you can take that and apply it to certain aspects in your life. You don't have to label it as villain and hero, but I remember making like a decision once I kind of started college. I was like, not living or dying as a hero, but like I can either continue to do what I'm doing, like how I was in high school, like, hanging out with people and doing things that like I don't necessarily love, but, you know, it'll make me more liked. Or I can, let all that stuff die, let go of it, and, maybe I don't have this, but I have this. And it just means a lot to me. And besides of what it means to me, it's just a phenomenal film. It's really done well. I mean, this movie solidified Christopher Nolan, and this movie changed the Oscars in terms of Best Picture. It used to be, I believe, they had either 5 or 8 films only got nominated, and then after The Dark Knight did not get nominated, the rule changed the year following, where they were like, okay, 10 is the rule now. We're gonna have 10 movies a year. Um, I think if you're a film that's able to change the rule book, you're pretty fucking good. So I love The Dark Knight.
My number one, and was it really a surprise? Come on, it's Oppenheimer. Like this movie, holy fuck! Like this movie damn near gave an existential crisis. Like after I watched it, and it that trailer gets me ready to like run through a wall or something. Like that, just everything was insane, and Christopher Nolan was just a. I knew he was a force to be reckoned with, but after this film, it really felt like he was putting everything into that bomb. Like, and just like Dr. Oppenheimer, like he was putting everything in it. There's so many metaphors throughout it that I can relate to just on
He put his whole Odyssey in it.
yes, on a cellular level, I can just relate to his paranoia and his different way of looking at the world. It's been something that I've been told my whole life that I view things from a unique perspective. And yeah, sometimes I do see the music and I do see these pulsating waves throughout everything. And it honestly scared me a little bit when I had to exit the theater and join reality again because I swear to God, when we walked out and like I saw daylight for a second, I thought I saw like the fucking bomb like go off and like everything just holy crap. Like it's small shit like that like I feel like Nolan is like communicating with me that like yeah, Jonathan, we do see the world the same way on some sense, and it's just such a special film. I never get tired of watching it. Robert Downey Jr. fucking holy shit. He put everything into that role, and it was so nice to see him in something other than Marvel. Not to say that, he doesn't kill it as Tony Stark Iron Man, but this was like, I think, closing of the page on just his journey as an actor, from going from what he went through before 2008 and his stage in his career to reaching stardom and finally getting that Oscar. He's one of the best working today. And I just love the dual story that goes on. That's one of the most special parts of that script to me. And it really made me want to step up as a screenwriter, because Oppenheimer, yes, it's about Oppenheimer, but when you rewatch it, it becomes another story on its own after you understand the events of the film and you start to look at things from Strauss's point of view and the black and white scenes. I love this film to pieces. It's perfect.
Yeah. My number one is obviously Tenet. I've talked about this film a lot. This came out in September 2020, which obviously 2020 was a awful year for all of us. It's nobody wants to go back to that or revisit that. It was a very low point, just in every aspect of life. It was terrible. But I mean, I'll get a little personal, and I brought it up before. 2020, from a personal standpoint, was easily the worst year of my entire life, and it's I hope it stays the worst year. I don't want a worse year than that. Just my family switched that year. My parents got divorced that year, right at the start of 2020, like literally 5 days into the year. And just my whole life got flipped upside down. And I'm sure for a lot of, I was 16 that year, so I'm sure for a lot of kids that age, it's difficult. But it's just something that I never thought would happen. And I really, you know, 16, you're getting older, but you still have that child in you. You know what I mean? And I completely lost it. I just didn't have it anymore. The innocence and the kind of wide-eyed wonderment that kids have, it was just taken away from me. With the events of, like, what was going on in the world, and then also with my family life. But at this point, I was a Christopher Nolan fan. Obviously, I had mentioned like The Dark Knight, Inception, stuff like that. But I remember when the trailers and teaser for this were coming out, I was over the moon excited, because I really liked Robert Pattinson. I had seen Good Time, and obviously the Twilight movies and Harry Potter and stuff. And then John David Washington, obviously he's Denzel's son. He was in a couple other things I like before this. So I was very excited. And then this film came out. It was the start of our junior year, like literally the first week of our junior year. Um, and I was just feeling really bad. It was the lowest point of my entire life, and I needed something to escape. This film came out, and it very instantly became my favorite Nolan film, and right now it is my number one film of all time. If I can make a movie, it would look like Tenet. It has everything that I want in a film. It has espionage. It has great score, great acting. It has a stoic character, and I really like characters that are. John David Washington, obviously, he speaks a lot. He has a lot of great dialogue, but he's very particular on his words, and he lets his actions dictate his character more than his words, and I love that. Everything about this film, I enjoy, and I've seen it on Letterbox. I think I've seen it 34 times, but lifetime count, and this is not a joke. I'm not exaggerating. This is like, I know for real a fact. It's 50 to 60 times I've seen this film in my life, and it only came out 6 years ago. It means the absolute world to me. I don't care about the reviews are mixed. I don't care if people think this is Nolan. I mean, some people are coming around to the film and they think it's one of his better films, but a lot of people think it's not good at all. I don't care. This film means so much to me. Um, Not that I would ever, do something really bad or negative in my life, but like I said, at that point in 2020, I was hanging on by a thread. I really had no motivation, and I was just lost mentally, and there was nothing to look forward to. And this film completely just turned my brain around, and I owe a lot to it. But even just outside of the emotional connection, it's just a fantastic film. And I think the only person in the world that has a shot to dethrone it as my number one Nolan, and my number one film of all time is Chris Nolan. So maybe in the future he'll have a film I think is better than this, but I highly doubt it. Tenet just is, it speaks to me. So
Mm,
I know that was a yap, but I just, it means a whole lot to
no,
me.
thank you for sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've been recording for 2 hours and almost 11 minutes
Yeah.
now, so it's 1:15 where we are, and we're pretty gassed. But we
Yeah.
had such a great time, the last however many hours, just being able to enjoy movies, and it's an exciting time, and I'm just happy to be here, really.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll probably go to watch this again within the next week or two in IMAX again for sure. Like I said, I'm just gonna take full advantage of this time while it's still out there, and I advise you guys to do the same. There's only one opportunity, and it's now, so you might as well go watch it. I know we kind of. I'll wrap this up quickly. We've been recording for a while. Like we're both drifting, but I think right now we might as well tease it. We have plans to do the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy as an episode in August. I'm kind of hoping that episode is towards the end of August. I think that's a great way to close out the summer. We obviously have Spider-Man in 2 weeks, where we're both going to be seeing that together. That episode is immediately getting recorded. Probably that I think we're seeing it on a Saturday together. I think so. We'll probably record it that weekend. Because I think if you don't know, me and Jathan grew up on Marvel, which we've mentioned before, and I think that's really where our friendship bonded because we've had a lot of great debates about Marvel in the past while we were like in middle school and high school and stuff, which is always great. And Marvel has been very iffy, obviously over the past 5 years, but it seems like I think we're both on the same page where like we're interested to see what Brand New Day brings, and I think it will spark some interesting things. I don't know if you've been hearing the rumors. Apparently, the post credit scene is going to set up Doomsday or have some effect on Doomsday. So I think we'll see what happens when we go to see it. But
And I saw that, and I think it confirmed one leak that I saw, which I won't get into, but
yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah,
just say that shit's gonna hit the fan.
yeah. But yeah, very exciting. Like I'll stop yapping. This is the last thing. I'm very happy that we can watch movies together now. Like I said, I love going to the theater alone, but the experience is better when I'm watching it with my best friend watching a film that I know he's appreciating as much as I appreciate it. So it's going to be a fun rest of the summer. Summer's already. I mean, it's flying by. It's already almost the end of July, but one step at a time. We have great episodes lined up, and we're just gonna try to keep on watching movies and enjoying the process. So
hmm Those last 3 hours flew by for me. Like, honestly, I thought the Odyssey might drag a little, but no,
it
we
flies.
we teleported. But that's gonna do it for episode 31. Yeah, stay tuned.
Peace.